What is up, guys? Tech Asian back here again with Python, our second video on this course where we go over math symbols and numbers and also variables. So let's jump right into it. Let's get started right away. I hope this time around the audio quality and video quality is much better than before. I apologize from the previous two videos, but I think I've got all the technical issues all sorted out. So we'll get started right away. VS Code, let's open that up and let's get started. So just reviewing what we learned yesterday, we learned the print function again and comments. If you forget how to do those quickly, we'll just review them real quick. So you can use the hashtag sign or the pound sign for commenting throughout. And remember, printing, you can use single quotes inside double quotes or double quotes on the outside with single quotes on the inside, but you can't use single quotes inside single quotes and double quotes inside double quotes. Okay, that's our first quick review, and then we'll jump right in right now. So the first thing we need to know during the math section is that Python can do math things. So in this case, adding and subtracting, dividing and multiplying, and then you can use greater than or equal to signs as well. So just a real quick example as we jump in. Let's create a new file instead of those last two. Let's call this math.py. If you forget how to create this folder or anything like that, remember, just watch the previous video. And yeah, so the link to the previous video will probably be down in the description. It was a late upload just because I was trying to sort out some technical issues, but again, I apologize for that. And let's get started. So we'll do print again, and let's see, today we'll do some chickens. So let's count my chickens is what this book says to type. So we're going to follow what it says, and then it says print hens, comma, and then so anything outside of the quotation marks is where it calculates the values instead of just printing whatever you want it to say. So in this case, let's see, we'll type in this equation: 25 plus 30 divided by 6. Now, you don't have to put a space in between the plus and the division signs on either side, but note that it does make it look better and it looks way cleaner instead of doing this, where it gets really jumbled really quick, especially if you're writing longer equations. So we're going to want to add spaces in between the operators in this case. And then let's say, so it will print this value. It'll print hens, and then it'll print this value right here. So we're gonna type the rest of this, and we'll see what the results are, if you guys don't believe me right now. So we'll do 100. Obviously, you can create any number you want, so just remember that. These are just numbers that we're advised to put. And also I forgot to mention, but there's also the modulus sign right here, this modulus symbol. And what the modulus symbol is it looks like the percent symbol, but in this case, what the modulus symbol does is it basically uses the remainder. So whatever it is, so say this is 3, if this was just 3, or let's say it's a higher number, so it'd be easier to calculate. So let's say it's 4% sign 3, or 4 modulus 3. In this case, the answer would be 1, because 4 divided by 3 doesn't go into it evenly, but you know that if 4 divided by 3 gives you 1 with a remainder of 1, so your answer would be 1. So in this case also, pretty sure Python does PEMDAS as well, so obviously that means just your order of operation. So yeah, we'll run it and we'll see how this does. So let's write the rest of these out and we'll get our answers real quick. If I can type. 2 plus 1. And if you want to type, I advise you to type along and learn, and you don't exactly have to type all the equations I am typing exactly word for word or number for number in this case, but just note that just plug in random numbers and explore what the output would give you. Obviously, if you want, you calculate what you think the answer will be before. And yeah, let's see. So we'll just print this so far, and then we'll go on to the rest of using the less than and greater than symbols. But for now, we'll print these mathematical calculations out. And remember, you click Run, then you click Debug, Python File, and let's see what we get. Okay, we get 30.0, 97, and 6.75. Oops. Okay, so what this does is, so you see the 6.75. So in previous versions of Python, it would only print integer numbers, but now in this case, it can print decimals, and you don't have to write like a float or call it a float. It will automatically print it out. So you get 6.75 in this case, 30.0 for this. So it does print in float instead of integers. So you get 30.0 instead of just 30. But yeah, remember, look at this PEMDAS. So instead of going like 25 plus 30 divided by 6, it does the 30 divided by 6. So you don't need to put, it does order of operations automatically. Now let's say, what if I do want it to be 25 plus 30 instead of 30 divided by 6 at first? So we'll give that a go and we'll see if that works. So we'll do this plus 6. I'm not sure if this will work, but you know what? We're giving it a go. Divided by 6. And start debugging. I'm guessing it won't, but maybe it will. 31 divided by 6 is 5.16. So it does. Putting around parentheses, you can use parentheses to denote order of operations. So if you want to add first. So that is always good to know as well. So we'll get rid of this. And let's move on to greater thans and less than. If you want to pause this video right now and just get through practice with different numbers and how this modulus sign works, I'm pretty sure it's like in the same category as addition and subtraction. So it doesn't get priority over anything. So you would have to do 25 times 3, so which is 75. So 100 minus 75 would give you 25. And then divided by 4 would give you, what, 6, and with a remainder of 1. So Roosters was 97. Huh. That's odd. Did I do my math wrong? 75. Or which one does it do first? Now I'm confused, huh? Well, let's continue exploring this then. In this case, we'll do, what is 3 modulus sine 4 in this case? Because if that went first, then maybe modulus sign has, so it says it's 3. So maybe if this was 3 instead, then you have 100 minus, it's still 75. But what if it's 75? What if it's 75 with the modulus of 4? That still wouldn't give you the right answer, would it? Wait, yeah, it would. Maybe, yeah, it would. Right? it'd give you 3. So 100 minus 3 is 97. Okay, so that's how you do it. So multiplication comes first, but then after multiplication, you're going to do the modulus sign. So that goes in with multiplication division, which sort of makes sense now because if we remember, it is dividing, modulus is dividing and then the remainder. So that's basically what you're doing. So division is with multiplication division in PEMDAS, and you would go left to right. So that is always good to know. So let's move on to greater than symbols now. So we'll get started right here. So we're going to print this. Is it true that 3 plus 2? So note that if it's inside here, inside the print sign, it will only print those symbols. It won't do the operations for you. It won't calculate anything. So minus 7. Is it true that 3 plus 2 is less than 5 minus 7? And in this case, we know that it's 5 is less than negative 2, which is not true. So this should give us false when we do print 3 plus 2 with less than 5 minus 7. And I forgot my parentheses, so it's going to give me an error if I don't put parentheses around it. And we'll debug that right now. And let's see, it prints out false. So when you use this less than or greater than symbol, it will only print out true or false if the statement is correct or incorrect. So if we put greater than, then we should be able to find out that it should say true instead of false. And right here it does say true. Okay. Now we're gonna move on to using the let's use greater than or equal to. So if we write print is it greater or equal question mark. You could obviously do these maths in your head and it's pretty simple, but if it were to get more complicated, using this Python to calculate it for you would obviously be pretty nice. So we're gonna put a comma, is it greater or equal, and then we can just type the numbers right away instead of, we don't need to have it like below or above. If we don't want it to, we can have it in the same print file. It's just gonna print it right next to it instead of in a separate line. So we're gonna say, is it greater or equal, and then we'll put 5 less than or greater than and equal to negative 2, and we obviously know this is gonna equal true. Hopefully you do. This is pretty simple math, and yeah, it does print out true. So there we go. Pretty simple. If you want some more practice, just fidget around with different numbers. But we're gonna move on to the next section, which is gonna be using variables. So how do we use variables? Pretty simple. We're gonna create a new file just to make it easier, and to get rid of all of this, we're gonna put variables.python. Obviously there's gonna be a lot more. I'm gonna split this up into 2 sections. So we're gonna put part 1 to variables in this video along with math, and then we're gonna make a second part of it tomorrow. So cars equals 100. So right here, you're setting the variable cars. So in this case, it says right here, it tells you that it's going to be an int, so which means it's an integer. But if you wanted to put like if you put float instead, then cars would have to be, it still says an integer because for a float, it's basically a decimal number. So you would have to put 0.0. And the error clears up in that case. But for some reason it's still giving me an error. Who knows? I guess I don't need to put a float. I can just put cars equals 100.0, right? And now cars is a float. So you don't have to specify that it is a float. But yeah, okay. You don't have to specify. The number automatically changes it into a floating number, whatever number you give it. So let's say space in. So this is a really complex example, but it brings together all your variables and math equations and what you want to do. So we're going to make this back to 100. So this says it's 4.0, so it's a float number in this case. And then we'll continue on to this point. We'll put drivers is equal to 30. Passengers is equal to 90. Passengers equal to 90. If you guys don't like this, also if you guys don't like this video being so long or other videos being this long, I can definitely make it shorter. But I mean, we're gonna run a little over today, but it should be fine. So cars minus drivers should give you cars not driven, which makes sense. And then don't forget that I'm pretty sure you can't put a space in between two named variables. You have to have underscores, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, because it's gonna say car. What's car? Car is not gonna be like a property like int, where I was showing you guys earlier. So if you're gonna put a space, you're gonna want to put an underscore instead of a space right there. But let's continue writing. Cars driven is equal to drivers, which makes sense. So this would equal 30 in this case right now, but obviously if drivers changes, cars driven would change. Car pool underscore capacity. Naming variables clearly too is going to be really helpful down the line if we start writing more complex code, in case so like if we forget, we will know exactly what the variable is called. Because if you just name like X instead of cars, you won't know what that means or equals later on. But obviously if you want to say it's X and then you put like a comment there, let's say we add a comment and say it's cars, obviously that's fine, but just naming it as a variable is just so much easier and it's going to be so much helpful down the line. So we're going to do average passengers per car is equal to passengers slash cars underscore driven. So now that we have our variables done, we have to start writing code. We have to start using this. So let's just print and let's get some outputs going. So there are, and remember, you can put multiple print statements into one print. So multiple, like say I want to insert this number in the middle of this print, then you can, obviously, if you didn't know that. So we put like cars right here, and then we can start another quotation right there, and we put cars available. So what this would print out or output would be there are how many cars available. So in this case, our variable is 100, so there are 100 cars available. Now, if we were to say there are only blank drivers available. And don't forget that even though I write drivers and we might mistakenly just put available, it'll print out a value and it'll just say there are 100 available and you won't know. So don't forget to put drivers inside the quotations right here as well. Just make sure, because it might look weird if it wasn't there. And we can transport, and like say there's space in a car, right? So you don't have to put 4.0 unless you want it to be a float. If you make it a float, then everything else it outputs is going to be in float form. So meaning it will have a decimal next to it, even though if it's like say 4, it's gonna have 4.0. So we can transport is going to be our carpool capacity, which makes sense. We can transport that many people today. And then we can print some more statements out. We have blank amount of passengers. And remember, these commas have to be outside the quotations. If you put it inside the quotations, you're gonna print out a comma, and you're gonna most likely run into an error. I'm assuming. Maybe you won't need it. Maybe it doesn't. Yeah, it will. Okay. Yeah, it just pops up red. It takes a little bit, but it will tell you if there's an error right away. But okay, so we have blank passengers to carpool today, and then we'll go into more in-depth detail about how to like set variables and how variables change within our code, because right now it's just static. These numbers don't change, but what happens if this number changes, which will affect the rest of our numbers. And tomorrow we'll go into more in-depth about more variables, but for today we're just going to just be simple. And yeah, so we need to put about, and then we put average passengers per car. It's always nice when you don't have to type it out because the code knows what you want to type. Okay. And if we run it now, we should get our desired output right here. And yep, there are only 100 cars available. There are only 30 drivers available, and we can only transport 120.0. You see, because carpool capacity, it uses cars under driven times space in a car, which is a float value. It will output a float value. But if I say put 4.0, this will automatically get rid of the 0.0 here and 0.0 here. So if we run it now, but if it wasn't easily divisible, then it would still output a point something value, but there's probably a float value somewhere else. Is passengers divided by cars driven. Passengers is 90, cars driven is drivers, so 30. Answer should be 3. Oh well, maybe division. This points out that division will give you a float value no matter what, apparently. Interesting. But okay, that's a thing to note as well. And also, there's another common thing why we're putting equals or the equal sign, but there's also a common mistake where there's the double equal sign. So an equal sign, you're setting it exactly as that value you're setting it equal to. You're signing something a value. But if you put equals, you're gonna, instead of saying you're assigning that value, you're comparing the two values. So you're saying that if they have the same value, then something else will occur. But for now, all we care about is just that single equal sign. And that's about all for today. I'll be back tomorrow, and this video has gone on a bit longer than usual, but you know what? It's fine. We learned a lot, and see you tomorrow. Peace.